We're going to be talking about type-to-type interactions today. So we have our manifestor, generator, our energy types. Projector, reflector are non-energy types. And what Ra says is that one of the most basic things about the way in which we meet each other is this. So obviously, a big part of your educational responsibility with your clients is to educate them on each other's type, if there's a difference. And now remember, there's subtypes. So a pure sacral generator is very different than a pure emotional generator. You know, maybe with manifesting potential, very, very different. So Ra says in most cases, most connections at the very beginning, because I really want to see it within the context of any kind of one-on-one with anyone. He says that within that context, connections, type is first and foremost the thing that can be a dilemma, unquote, his terms, dilemma. This is where the problems start. People come into relationship incorrectly. The projector chases after the manifestor or the generator. Anybody initiates with manifestor, and from the not self, that relationship ensues. Okay, not in honor of their type and certainly not in honor of their authoritative process. So the first thing is to recognize that types are very, very different from each other. He says it's so clear to me that the closer you come to your own nature, the more you realize how differently everyone else functions. Isn't that true? You know, he says, the longer I've had to settle into what it is to be me, which is an ego, splenic authority manifestor, how clear it is that anyone who is not an ego manifestor is an alien to him. It's just clear to me, he says. They didn't get off the same bundle. We're not related. It's almost a difference as vast as gender. It's huge. I think that my relationship to it, or to see it in that way, is rooted in how long I've been away from being homogenized. It's so clear to me that the closer you come to your own nature, the more you realize how differently everyone else functions. Now, pause there. Think about your relationships. The difference in type means you're being conditioned by that differentiated other person, their type. Not only that, you're dealing with conditioning from their type and all their centers and so forth. So next week, we're going to focus on centers. This week, we're going to focus specifically on type. Type is the most important thing to educate your clients about so that they don't have the problems that ensue from different type relationships. Okay, different type relationships, different people, very different people. Same type relationships tend to be easier on each other. Now I say tend because obviously you got an unemotional person and an emotional person, that's going to be a challenge, but we'll talk about that next week. Okay, so first things first, we're looking at very different auric frequencies. Remember these terms: manifestor, tight to the body, closed, and repelling, impact. Generator, open and enveloping. It's porous. It has no filter, not like the manifestor. Okay, very different from each other. Projector is focused, there they are in the middle, focused and absorbing, one person at a time. Reflector is resistant and sampling. Resistant and sampling. Now the reflector has a kind of, remember it's Teflon aura, a kind of protection, just like the manifestor has a kind of protection. Projector, there it is in the middle, projector has no protection. When it's focused and penetrating one person at a time, it is taking in the conditioning of that other person, and that's how it gets its superpower of recognition. Generator has no protective field. It takes in everything. So we're going to start with a quote from Ra on projectors. He says, with their focused and absorbing aura, they're not open. Okay, very different. They don't envelop. They absorb. They take in from the other. They have to, after all. So he says, think about the projector and reflector and the secondary keynotes, absorbing and sampling. Again, you're dealing with two non-energy types, and you can see that they have to take in something. The projector absorbs and the reflector samples. Now let's look at the manifestor. Manifestor don't need generator. Okay, in that sense, they can manifest. They have the energy to manifest. They don't need the energy resource. They have their own energy that manifests. They need to tap into life force, but they don't need energy resource to do so. So, because they are very independent, oftentimes you'll find manifestors just doing their own thing. And what happens is, in the not-self, manifestors pretend like they're generators, wait for the response, wait to be asked. And then who's doing the asking? The projector who's trying to get the attention of the manifestor, the generator who wants the impact of the manifestor. And that's how we have all the kind of challenges, because when you step off on the wrong foot, it colors every single relationship experience down the road. Now, that being said, if you think back to your own personal relationship and you go, oops, I'm a projector and I initiated with my manifestor, not to worry. You know, there's always the ability to decondition and to be in correct relationship again. But just to know the mechanics of this, it's very helpful for you in your discernment of how these two people that are coming to you are designed to operate. And you're educating them on how they're designed to operate, as well as the other person, so that they can respect each other. So re-education of the manifestor to let them know they need to inform their partner. Okay. So now let's look and see how types come together. Relationships operate out of genetic imperatives, as we looked at last week. And each of them have their own rules. So you're going to look at how they come together to see how they're designed to come together. And the primary ingredient in a relationship analysis is type. So how are they going to mesh together? What is that relationship going to be like? And how can you educate them so that they can be more satisfied, successful, peaceful, what have you? The person that is responsible for the relationship success, guess what? Projector. Where the satisfaction comes from, generator. Where the peace comes from, whose responsibility is that? Manifestor. And reflector, of course, operating in alignment brings the surprise. So when we have, for example, a generator and a projector coming together, we have a completely different kind of energetic field than when there are two generators coming together. Completely different. Very, very unique to each different combination. So, again, highlighting. Educate them on the other type. Generators can ask, but to be fair and honest to them in relationship, they need to be asked back in return. All types in relationship need to honor each other. Otherwise, there is no true relationship. It's a not-self relationship. And here, you've read this quote before. I love it. It's my favorite. I've spread it all over the internet for years. If you allow someone to be who they are, and they allow you to be yourself, that's love. Anything else is torture. And relationship is all about acceptance of who the other person is and loving them for who they are, not what they become in relationship or what you want them to be because of the relationship. Now, if both partners are not participating in the relationship, then there will be problems. If they're not participating in the human design experiment, it can get a little bit better if one of them's participating, but you're still going to have problems. Now, projectors have a bad reputation, and from the manifestor and the generator, they feel often it's irritating. You know, most of the types, if they're in relationship and it's not aligned, it's going to feel irritating. It's going to feel uncomfortable. When that being is operating out of integrity, it's going to feel really uncomfortable. So projector initiating with a generator or a manifestor, trying to insert themselves into relationship, it can be irritating. So too, generator trying to initiate with a manifestor, and the manifestor not feeling comfortable with that, it's going to be irritating. We have to go beyond these little, detailed look at each individual type and see the overall big picture as well. Not just a type to type, but also what else is there that is a source of irritation, i.e. compromise. Now, every single type that we have has something so precious and needed for our Maya, so valuable, every one of us. So the thing that happens is, because we're operating out of integrity or alignment, we're not getting the, respect, recognition, satisfaction, peace, surprise that we were designed for. And then the relationship won't feel fulfilling. So this is the most important thing, that it starts off in alignment, or that if the bond is broken, that we realign. And when it comes to the generator type, for example, so looking at the generator type, generator has to be treated with respect to their sacral center. If they ask someone, say they ask the projector, would you like to go out on a date with me? The projector says, sure, I'll pick you up at 5:30. That is not as helpful as, would you like me to pick you up at 5:30? Can you feel the difference between telling the other person and engaging their sacral? The first was telling, I'll pick you up at 5:30. The second is, would you like me to pick you up at 5:30? Now, that is a not self relationship still. Why? Because projector is not designed to do any kind of picking up. I remember teaching BG5 Career and Business Analysis Level 1, and my beautiful assistant who was in there with me, Leanne Wolf, you might know her on YouTube, she says, I have a projector friend. And I know with that projector friend, I'm designed to pick her up if we want to go to the movies. So I go and ask her, do you want to go to the movies with me? And she says, sure, pick me up at 5:30. So different. If you do not ask that generator back, and if they're emotional, give them time to process, you are not treating them in alignment with respect to their sacral. Why? Because the sacral needs to be asked. It needs to be asked. Everything needs to happen in alignment. Now, we're all going to make mistakes. But when you're coming into this and you're attempting to remediate a relationship, the type relationship is the most important thing to start with. Okay? So we're going to go into examples of each. Every single type needs to feel seen and gotten, grokked as their own type, respected. They need to learn what the value of their own type is. Every single type is a gift. They all have their own spirit. Each type resonates to that. So you need to help your client understand that. Back to the generator. They need to have something to respond to. So teach them of doing the experiment. Remember their experiment from LYD? Sacral questions, if they're a sacral generator, how helpful that was? If we say that a generator is here to respond, we are saying that this person has an energetic availability. If that energetic availability does not respond, it's not correct for them to move forward. So if they ask, They initiate a question with somebody, say with a projector or reflector, as is correct for them. If you don't ask them back, or even if with a fellow generator, it's the most precious and valuable, purest, honest relationship you can have. Sacral generator with sacral generator. Do you love me? Uh-huh. Do you love me? Uh-huh. That's the truth. The sacral doesn't lie. Okay, so we have to engage the sacral. Generators need to have something to respond to. So, example. If a paper blows down the street and lands at your feet, is life giving you something to respond to? Will you pick that paper up? What we have with a generator is the sacral energy that is available to respond, and it will or it won't. Life force energy moving through to engage. Engage is either neutral or push away or do something. Okay? So I hope that that answers the question of generators can ask, but they need to be asked in return. Does that make sense? We want generators to understand that they need to have something to respond to. Life offers tons of response, but in relationship, we're talking about the other person. The other person needs to respect that generator by giving them something to respond to. That is why we say, wait to be asked. They have to have something to respond to instead of telling them what to do. That's how you respect a generator. Okay. So let's look at generator. When we're being conditioned by a generator as a projector, as a manifestor, as a reflector, all us non-sacral beings, when we're being conditioned, we're learning about life. Okay, so it's not about not being conditioned. It's just that the generator sacral motor responds, and those of us with non-sacral energy learn. Life is about learning. So everywhere that we are with somebody who's different from us, we're learning about that other type. And we treat that type the way that they're designed to be treated. So what Ra says is, we're being conditioned, those of us who are non-sacral, that is what life is for us. And at the same time, that open and enveloping, when it is correct, is not looking for anything in return. This is what it's really about. So let's look. Type with type, generator with generator. Here's Victoria Beckham, as you can see, right? And isn't that his husband, David Beckham, or her husband, David Beckham? The ideal within the context of the not-self genetic domain, Ra says, is generator with generator. There is a better chance with generator than just about any kind of mixing. Chance for satisfaction in the relationship, obviously, because they're both designed to have satisfaction. Better chance, why? Because the energy is so similar. Every single sacral, though the generator with generator, if they have a relationship with every other non-sacral, it's going to be very, very different. So this is the ideal in context with the not self-genetic domain. In this relationship, we have a relationship that is based on both of them being open and enveloping. Open and enveloping means that everything's okay. Big, auric, warm bear hug with each other. Right? So generators, Ra says, have to see that the most important relationships are always going to be with another generator. It's so important for generators. The more that generators are with generators, the healthier their process is. How wonderful it is to be able to have a relationship rooted in the respect of response and rooted in a relationship that is based on openness and envelopment, which is very special. It is the life force. So very productive, very easeful, depending on what else is going on in the chart, of course. But comparatively with types, it is comfortable. generator with generator. So the moment that this is a quote from Ra, the moment that a couple can comfortably make decisions together, this is an enormous triumph, he says. It is. It's very, very difficult for couples to make decisions together. Most couple decisions are majority votes in the sense that somebody is pushing much harder and somebody else is giving in. Rarely is it mutual decision making. One of the advantages of sacral beings being together is that they really have this mechanical way in which they can have this mutual confirmation in decision making together. So they can both ask each other and feel into things and make sure that they're clear before moving forward. So that was generator with generator. And this is a very, very healthy kind of relationship. After all, for generators, the gene pool is huge. Think about how many people there are on the planet. 4 billion generators. Over 4 billion. So it means that the generator to generator relationship is the one that has the highest potential of commonality. And it is the one that can be very, very successful. Quote from Ra. I'm trying to stick to quotes from Ra so that you get pure from the source how important it is to recognize and honor these different truths about type relationships. Now, we're going to look at Catherine Zeta-Jones on the left here, you see her, and Michael Douglas. And one of the interesting things Ra says about these is that when you're looking at a chart, obviously, age, there's no thing that shows us age from just chart to chart. So it's not really a thing in our human design experiment or studies, except for we've got a 6-line being, then you know that one's obviously slow to mature. Okay? So quote, it's very important to see that the moment you have cross-type configuration, you're always going to have difficulties. And the only one that truly has potential, and it's not going to be the case for all generators or all projectors, but the one that does have potential as a cross-type relationship is the relationship between the projector and the generator, unquote. And other times I've heard him say that in this type of relationship, the projector is the one that suffers the most. Why? Because they are being conditioned by the sacral generator energy, which is obviously very, very different. In this one, you can see, and often is the case with relationships, you'll just see they're like little puzzle pieces snapping into each other. Undefined emotional system, defined emotional system. That's the most challenging in relationship, regardless of type. Okay, so generator is looking for open and enveloping in return. Can the projector give that? Nope. Quote, projectors and reflectors have to connect to the generating field. So while the projector is focused and absorbing, taking it all in, the generator is looking for the open and enveloping in return and doesn't get it. And the projector doesn't understand any of that. They don't even notice that they're being enveloped, unquote. Why? Because they are designed to penetrate, focus, and absorb completely. So who is the person that's wondering, curious, why am I not being enveloping? It's the enveloped, the generator that's there. So I can remember being at a immersion and meeting a beautiful, pure generator in the immersion. She sat down next to me and wanted to talk. And she had 2 projector parents. All she had was the 59-6. And she told me a story about how when she was a young child, they both would get in her face and, undefined G, penetrate into her at different times, trying to tell her what to do rather than asking. And it was so painful. She literally felt pain in her chest when they were doing that. So it's a very, very different frequency field that is created when these two come together, and it must be in honor of the sacral being as well as the projector's energy. We'll come to reflectors later on. So the sacral being, quote, the sacral being is the only being who knows how to work. They really know how to work. They're here to work. They're here to fill the life with productivity. Why? Define sacral. That's where we produce. So, quote, the projector is looking for a good life. They want the life. They're not here for the work. The work is not something that is designed for them. They're not energy types after all. They're looking for the quality of life. And so what the projector and generator together, when you see that, they come together and they create something more than just what they are separately. What the projector creates for the generator, what it can offer the generator, is life. And the generator can teach the projector the value of work. Now, these two things are very important. It really is the crux of their relationship together. Whether they're in business partnership, whether they're parent-child, or whether in this case they're married, like Michael Douglas and Catherine Zeta-Jones. All right. Now let's go look at these other types. But first we're going to read a little quote from Ra here. He says, I'm not suggesting for a moment that the not-self projector with the not-self generator is going to be a good relationship. But what I am saying is that there is a potential in working with couples or in working with connections where you have this kind of relationship to recognize there's a deep potential benefit in it. But again, it goes back to the two of them really mutually coming into that relationship together correctly. Okay? All not self relationships, horrible. Coming together correctly, much more comfortable. Here's David Beckham and Tom Cruise as friends. Okay, so we have a generator with a manifestor, a manifesting generator with emotional authority, and an ego manifestor with emotional authority. So where you might imagine that they have friendship is, the commonalities, which we'll talk about centers-wise next week. And where the problems come from are type being different. So generator trying to envelop manifestor, not going to happen. Why? If you've ever played with those giant parachutes at a park, I remember when I was a kid going on a school trip, we had this giant parachute. And we're all holding the parachute, playing on the inside of it. So imagine that parachute is the generator aura, giant, opening and enveloping. And there's somebody on the other side, the top of the parachute, as this parachute is down on the ground, filled up by the wind. That other person on the other side of the top of the parachute is going to be enveloped by that parachute, but it's not going to get in. Not going to be enveloped completely. There's going to be resistance there. So that's what happens with manifestor. Manifestor is not penetrated. Okay? Manifestor doesn't envelop the generator either. It has its own aura that is repelling, not penetrating. So you can see a very, very different thematic that we have here. See how we have the generator with its open enveloping, and the manifestor with its closed and repelling. Closed and repelling, not comfortable like a generator with generator relationship. Not intimate like a projector with generator relationship. This is a very different beast. Okay? Very different beast. So here we can see their full charts together, and what do they create together? All the centers defined, but a vast, wide gap there. So when we look at the centers that are defined, we can see who is getting conditioned by what. And we'll talk more specifically about how that works next week. Now, when we look at the relationship between generator and manifestor, as we just did, it's not uncommon also to see that. Less common than projector, obviously, generator with projector, because generator with projector, there's 20% of the population to work with projectors. Manifestors are only 10%. So this was the relationship that Ra had with his wife. Okay, he was a manifestor, she a generator. And what Ra says about that is that most manifestor-generator relationships simply root themselves in the fact that they are mutually productive as energy types, and don't overly concern themselves with the fact that the basic communication doesn't work. The man himself says they don't really belong together, and yet that was his relationship with his wife. Okay, they don't really belong together. Now, here is Ivan Turgenev and Fyodor. Katja, can you help me out? How do you say that?
It's Ivan Turgenev and Fyodor Dostoevsky.
Okay. So Fyodor was a Russian novelist, short story writer, essayist, and journalist. Thank you so much, Katja. His most acclaimed novels include Crime and Punishment, The Idiot, Demons, and The Brothers Karamazov. Now, Ivan was also a Russian novelist, short story writer, poet, playwright, translator, and popularizer of Russian literature in the West, from Wikipedia. And these are friends who became enemies. Generator with reflector. You can see a sacral generated pressure also generator. And then we have the reflector, completely open. Friends who became enemies. So here we see the dynamic of the open, enveloping aura that is just being sampled by the reflector. The reflector has a protective shield. It is not more subject to conditioning by other types. They're designed to be a barometer of the community, right? But also the conditioning can slide off. They're more sensitive to transit activations, as we know, very comfortable, very connected to that moon, that lunar cycle. So it's going to be a very different relationship than the manifestor who was repelling, than the projector who was penetrating. This reflector is sampling, okay, sampling that generator frequency, that generator auric frequency. So here we can see now what's going on between the two of them. No compromises. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that right? 5 electromagnetics. So even though we have a reflector on one side and a very open-looking generator, together we can see that they are an 8 and 1. 8 centers defined, 1 undefined. I hear an feedback. Is there a question? No? Okay. Might have been a mic unmuted for a moment there. So what we're looking at here is sometimes you have relationships that look good on paper. Really great example of this. It looks good on paper. Why? Because, oh, we have an 8-1, have some fun. Oh, it was your cat. Yeah, kitties always want to be right up on the computer and touching the keyboard and such, right? In your face, getting pets. Give attention to me, mama, not to that computer screen. So the point here, looks good on paper, right? 8 and 1, have some fun. No, these were enemies, okay? So very, very different. You cannot judge just by that piece of paper. That's why for relationship analysis, it's helpful. One person at a time, then together. And this is how you build a practice where you really can make a difference in these people's lives. Obviously, if you are a projector and you have no penta activations, do not get yourself in aura between these two people. Okay? Everyone understands why, right? You have no power in that group. No penta activations, no power. Projector, no power. Okay? All right. generator with reflector. So we have just gone through all four from generator to the other. It's going to be the same back. And as we go through the presentation, we have other, everything's going to be looking similar. But we've already done manifestor with generator. So you'll see me just kind of skip a little bit quicker through the one we've already discussed. Now let's look at manifestor with manifestor. Here you see Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes. She was his ex-wife. Goodness. I don't want to get too much into their backstory, but that one was pretty tumultuous, is what I hear from the, even though I don't watch TV or news or anything, you still hear about it. Social media comes across your feed. Okay, so you have two manifestor auras. What kind of manifestor are they? It's very different to have an ego manifested energy than an emotional manifested energy. Do you see that? So even though likes like, okay, the two relationship, it's still a manifestor relationship. As far as manifestor goes, ego manifested, we have to, versus individual emotional manifested, I can try. Very, very different. And as you can see, they have different kinds of minds. They have one's splenic, one's not. So there's all these different variations. And when we look deeper, now we can see that there were some serious challenges in this relationship because of the compromises. Just one compromising gate. One gate compromised. There we go. One gate compromised can lead to the death of any relationship. Any relationship. It's more particularly painful when it's the sun, earth. Ra would give that relationship 6 months in aura until you're sick of each other and you want out. I'm not saying to forecast this to your clients. Remember, they're coming to you with a relationship. We just fell in love and we want to get married. Is this a good relationship? Should I get married? Oh, don't do that, right? Because that's not what you're here for. When there is a challenge and a problem, it's like a thorn in the side that you can never get rid of. It's most painful for the projector who is penetrating and absorbing. This one, manifested, imagine two angry people in relationship, one tribal and one individual. So different, right? So much challenge, so much pain, and perhaps misunderstanding. Because are they really able to penetrate into each other and know the other? No, they're on their own little shielded bubble. Yeah, living in their own bubble that nobody can get into. Isolated. Perhaps lonely, even being in relationship. We've got multiple, both of them have 2, if not 3, aloneness gates, needing alone time in relationship. You can see all the centers lit up. So there's no escaping. We'll talk more about the centers thematics again later on, but I want you to see that even though likes like, if you have this much intensity in relationship and there's problems there because of not being healthy in relationship, not being in there correctly with their emotional clarity, you're going to have problems. So don't get too hooked into like should be with like, okay? Because of the ease or the understanding. Now, manifestor with generator. Here's Tom Cruise with Nicole Kidman. And Ross says, every type has its prejudice after all. Type is a real powerful demarcation. The differences in type are quite something. So isn't it interesting that we find Tom Cruise with this generator type here? Interesting? Oh yeah, he's going to find her interesting. And she's going to find him interesting. Do you see that? How different the relationship is when you just flip back and forth? One open and enveloping, one closed and repelling. So manifestors are astonished. Ra says they're always astonished that other beings aren't closed and repelling. Quote, what's the matter with them? What do they want? What's all this openness for? And for projectors, why are you focusing over here? So remember, we don't have any idea what it's like to be another type. We don't. We only know our own type, our own energy, our own frequency. Help them, do your best to help them understand each other when they're different like this, because it's a very different thing. Remember, in this relationship as a manifestor, manifestor is here to inform, not ask, with the exception of that 4521, to take control of finances. Oh, if he doesn't ask Nicole, we're going to have big problems, because that 21 is being compromised. And the 21, line 3, is here to be in control of their financial well-being and how they make money. 21, line 3, learning about helplessness. Is Nicole Kidman helpless in that relationship when Tom takes control? Heck yeah. Punishment. Okay, so Ra says, quote, the manifestor is here to inform, not to ask. That leads to a dilemma. The generator is waiting to be asked, but instead of being asked, they're simply told something. This becomes a real problem. Real problem. Compromise, the death of any relationship, potentially, not a guarantee. That's where the problem is. That's where the trigger point is, the wound, if you will, that needs to be understood by both parties. Now, the problem here, Ra says, is the dilemma, is that the manifestor-generator relationship is often one in which communication is very difficult. So, manifestor with generator, you have your work cut out for you to be that intermediary, to help them understand each other, because it's not necessarily comfortable. And as Ra said earlier, not easy. Now here's some friends, manifestor with projector, Tom Cruise and Demi Moore, who starred in shows together, movies together. So you can see we've got ego manifested with emotional authority, and we've got a split definition, emotional authority projector. Oops, I didn't mean to skip there. I just hit the button. That was my own hand. Okay. So even though they're both emotional, vastly different types and vastly different kinds of emotional authority, because one we have is tribal, the projector on the right, Demi, and the other we have is individual. Tom is an individual, emotional authority, split definition, ego manifestor. So you can see projector trying to get in, and it's not getting in there. There's nothing happening there. So trying to penetrate, trying to focus, trying to absorb, these auras are very, very different. So the manifestors look out at other auras, and when they meet the other aura, the first thing they realize is, you're not like me at all. And that can lead to the loneliness and isolation. Not being understood, not feeling understood, because they're in their own little bubble, right? So now let's look at Tom Cruise and Demi Moore. Here we have that generator created, even though they're non-energy types. I should say sacral created. The energy of the chart itself is generated with emotional and ego manifesting potential. It doesn't make them a generator together. It doesn't. The relationship is mutative. So saying we become an emotional manifesting generator together, not correct for this relationship. Why? Because we have a projector that cannot penetrate into the manifestor. We have a manifestor that is in its own bubble that needs to inform the projector. So manifestor informing the projector, inviting the projector through, this projector being recognized and invited by this manifestor informing that is the correct way for this relationship to be initiated, not from the projector demi-moire initiating with Tom. Otherwise, it's like, you know how a snowball gets started? Just a little tiny, crack in the ice maybe, and then just a little snow starts falling, and then all of a sudden at the bottom you've got this giant avalanche. The beginning makes a difference in relationships. How we start off on the quote-unquote right foot. Not that right is good and left is bad, but you know what I mean. It is honoring the respect of each individual's type, because the manifestor is designed to go first in relationship dynamics. Okay, manifestor with projector. Now it's at this place that oftentimes, before we go into reflector, because the manifestor is designed to go first, you might find that people go, oh my God, but I'm the one who chased over generator, projector, reflector, saying, I'm the one who chased him. So does that mean my relationship is wrong or bad? Okay, so maybe you got off on the wrong foot. But now that you've got this tool, this technique, if the both of you are honoring and respecting each other, giving yourself space and time to be your own authority, and then coming together in relationship, in partnership, with respect to each other's authoritative process, then we have something that can realign or get back on track so that there is peace in the relationship. Remember, for the manifestor, its peace is its responsibility. Keep them informed. Everyone else, generator, projector, reflector, keep the manifestor informed of anything that is going to impact them if you're in relationship already. So this is not the little day-to-day mundane things. I'm going to the bathroom now. You're telling your manifestor partner no. Not unless it's the only bathroom and you're going to be in there for 5 hours because you're doing a spa day. That kind of thing. Anything that will impact them, irritate them, make them angry, keep them informed. Okay, so let's look at these colleagues here. We have a manifestor with a reflector. I love this picture. Tom Cruise and Sandra Bullock. So what Ra says, he says that is the two of the types are connected to the program, and two of the types are connected to each other. This bond that exists between projector and generator is a similar bond that exists between manifestor and reflector in the way in which they're intended to operate in the program, because they both have their own shield, if you will, to their density here with the manifestor, or Teflon sampling energy with the reflector. You can see here, there's still not, this density is here with the manifestor, but we've got a little tiny bit, you can barely see it, of this reflector sampling that manifestor energy. But both of them being very deeply connected to the transiting program energy, because that's what they're designed to do. One initiates and has impact, and one reflects and has this ability to evaluate, to judge. Ra called them the cosmic judges of the totality. And seeing who is different is what Sandra is here to do. Is Tom different? Yes, he's the top 10%. Or I don't know what top he is, actually. I shouldn't say top. But he's 10%. He's definitely at the top of the hierarchy, isn't he? Well, he's a 45-21. That 21 is his unconscious sun. That's a leadership line right there, 21 line 5. So obviously, he's going to be out there, the king of his own domain, you could say. And then Sandra, one of our most beloved actresses and, most beloved known reflectors, because she's an actress. And so in that relationship, even though Sandra in her design is completely undefined, you see what happens when they come in relationship together. You see we have an 8 and 1. have some fun in that relationship. We'll talk more about the little rhymes when we get there. Okay, some of these quotes from Ra that were either in the presentation or that Katja put in, very impactful to know about. Obviously, it always comes back to authority. So doing your best to make sure that you're honoring the integrity of not only your own authority, but encouraging, fostering your client to be their own authority, not letting them make you the authority on the relationship. That is the most helpful thing I can tell you. Don't get lost in the power trip thing, especially if you're a projector. Hi, LaVeena's done this. I'm speaking from experience. I've made this mistake. Do not let them try to make you their authority. Your job as an educator, a facilitator, which that is what a projector can do really well, in fact. Projectors are facilitators. So Ra says, quote, when you're dealing with a projector, there are two kinds of relationships that can work for them. The projector-projector relationship, in where there is going to be a defined sacral or manifesting capacity, and the potential of the projector with the right generator. But again, that is going to be a matter of how they are going to operate and whether or not they're going to operate correctly as themselves. So let's go look at projector with projector relationship, a very beautiful relationship. Here we have some friends, Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio. Brad's on the left, Leonardo is on the right. You can see we've got a splenic energy projector, and we've got an emotional energy projector with a wide split as far as Leo is concerned. Both of them undefined G's and undefined throats. Isn't that interesting? Undefined G's making this their way, their money through acting and speaking other people's lines. Yep, definitely. Okay, so now in relationship, projector with projector relationship, this is a comfort and an ease if it's aligned. If it's not aligned, it is so horribly painful and uncomfortable, I can't tell you. Okay, there's so many different subtypes of projectors, as you know. Energy, mental, classic, and then below that, we also have what kind of authority is it? So then there, energy particularly, lots of different subtypes. Okay, what do we have? An ego energy, or an emotional energy, or an adrenal energy projector. So in this case, we have an ego and emotional energy projector with Leo, and we have a adrenaline energy projector with Brad. These are the two that can really know who each other are in relationship. Because whatever they're taking in, they're penetrating into the other, they're absorbing the other. So it's a very deep and profound relationship that can happen between two projector people, whatever variety of relationship there is. So here we can see now the gate activations and compromises that ensue. What we have is 7 and 2, work to do as far as the openness in the design. Both of them pretty open. This one's a lot more defined, but still got a all open down here in the power column. So what will happen in this relationship is you can see that sacral energy doesn't get touched and that identity energy doesn't get touched. So the relationship, as far as where they're going to play together, is going to be in the openness. And where they're going to learn about each other is where the other person brings in definition. And the relationship itself is predicated upon correct aligned interaction. Who goes first in this relationship? What I can see from this is that in the relationship itself, we've got a 51 from Brad as far as, ego energy, courage to go first, potentially. But also, too, we've got more energy over here with Leo. It doesn't matter who goes first in a projector-projector relationship. What matters is that the authority is aligned. So for Brad, spontaneous recognition, mutual invitation, Leo having the energy, the emotional integrity to be able to be patient and wait. They both need to get to know each other. One's a 4, the other one's emotional. And over time, that relationship can prove itself to be comfortable and in honor and respect of each other and where they're coming from, what their energy is, so that the relationship can be successful. Because remember, the projector is responsible for the success of the relationship, for the sweetness of the relationship. And so both of them have that responsibility in this relationship. All right, that's projector with projector. I have lots of stories of emotional projector with emotional projector, which most of you have already heard, because that's my most of the 10 years relationship. Now, here's a projector, Brad Pitt, with Angelina Jolie, who is, you can see, a manifesting generator. And Ra says, think about how that works. The projector is here to be invited, and the generator is here to respond. So the relationship between the generator and the projector has to be initiated by the generator. Yet, the generator never knows if that's correct. So what does the facilitating energy of the projector do? Ask. Give them something to respond to. Not tell them what to do. Obviously, that's never going to work with this woman. Compromise, you can see here. Let's go look at the chart. Oh, wait, hang on. We'll go look at the chart in a moment, because that compromise is a doozy. So what happens here, Ra says, being enveloped does not mean that you're seen, does not mean that you're recognized. Remember when we looked at the projector-projector relationship? You can penetrate into each other, you can absorb, you can recognize each other. The most recognition you'll get in a relationship is a projector-projector relationship, because that's what we're designed to do. Generator here is not necessarily recognizing that projector. If that projector is inserting self into that relationship incorrectly, initiating with generator rather than waiting for that generator to initiate or ask them, invite them, then we have the domino effect of incorrect alignment in these forces that come together. So here's a quote from Ra. He says, think about the projector. Its aura is focused and absorbed on the identity of the generator, while the generator has enveloped it and is conditioning it with its force. And in most cases, the projector is not aware of how deep the conditioning is going in because they don't notice it. The projector wants to be seen. And again, being enveloped does not mean that you're seen, does not mean that you're recognized. So the type with type here, the generator is going to be seen, it's going to be recognized by the projector because that's what the projector does. Generator, not necessarily able to do that for the other. And so what happens? Discomfort. And where the projector, you can see here now Brad is on the right-hand side, where the projector has a thorn in its side is going to be so painful because you can never get rid of it. And if it's not understood, potential death of the relationship. So now what we see here is exactly the problem or challenge that Ra forecasted about in saying that, I give them 6 months. With regards to Brad, his incarnation cross, that earth right there, 36, you can see it right here, being compromised by Angelina Jolie. So painful in relationship. He's got, let's see, he's green. 1, 2, 3 compromises in the relationship. That is a very painful situation. So let's see here. Ra says, the real difficulty is with the projector. A generator who is open is going to work on themselves because working on themselves is something that is wired into their genetics. But when you're dealing with the projector is here to know other, not self. Itself is a secondary thing. It is this knowing of the other that drives the projector so deeply. And it's very difficult for the projector to truly begin to grasp their own nature and to begin to operate correctly as a projector until they see the way that it works in the other. So this is why I always recommend that projectors, study the other in your relationship. So that is what we would do with Brad. You can also see, besides the compromise, that she swings him into the juxtaposition, the extremes, because you see how it's blue right there? The extremes of the expression. So they're control issues here, both of them with control issues. Who's going to win that fight? 10 times out of 10, it's Angelina. Always is going to win that fight because of the dominance of the energy and the compromises that are there. So painful. In that crisis, in that relationship, I would not want to be a fly on the wall. That would be very painful. Okay, so you encourage that projector, if you have one in a relationship analysis, to study their partner, not themselves. Most of the time, projectors going to try and figure themselves out, would be, who am I, who am I, who am I, if they're deeply conditioned. Help them see the other. Help them recognize what's going on over there. In that mirror is how they finally get the picture. So, quote, the generator partner has to be encouraged to enter into their experiment of responding. But the projector needs to be encouraged to study their partner. In other words, the projector has to take on additional responsibility in that sense. They have to figure out why this was being demonstrated. Oh, wait, hang on. They have to figure out why this was being demonstrated. Yeah. Okay. So with regards to the projector and generator coming to a reading, when it's there all laid out, the projector needs to understand how the analyst saw the pain points, okay, those challenges, and what the other person was like. Brad's thinking, how do you know her? And how do you know my relationship with her? Because they're going to grasp this. Ross says, the moment the projector can get to that place, they can begin to be truly transformed when they see and recognize the other, know the other. This is a beautiful picture that you found. You can see him just looking right at her. So it's one of the things to understand, Ross says, that there is a protocol in the way in which these relationships work. And just as there has to be conformation between generator and generator, there has to be a very complex protocol between generator and projector. What I want to really make clear, I'm using the technical language of protocol, but there is this bonding protocol that is necessary between types. What it leads to is the ability, through their authority, to confirm that they're in the right kind of relationship. Again, I'm not just referring to whether this is going to be lover or friend or business associate. As a matter of fact, the generator-projector business relationship is one that can be enormously beneficial. But again, it goes back to the protocol. Now, this man right here with that much openness, you can see he's going to be heavily conditioned by this woman's sexuality, right? By her energy, by her frequency. And an open projector like this gets addicted to that energy, maybe that drama, maybe reenacting trauma. Who knows what his mother looks like, or a parent, and what of Angelina he was attracted to. Of course, we're always attracted to what is not, what is different. But it's also that same thing that can repel us away because it is so different, because it is not comfortable. So this is where there's a lot of suffering in relationship when there is a vast difference. It can be productive, but at what cost? To the projector, most especially. Now, let's look at projector and manifestor and projector and reflector. We already looked at this once, but here we have a different chart to look at. We can see Brad Pitt with his lady love, Jennifer Aniston, from the past. And we can see that projector attempting to penetrate, not able to get in to that manifestor energy. So in relationship, we see now very open, pretty open, and we have 6 and 3, better to be free. That's a generality. It's something to think about and process, but it's not a recommendation. Oh, you got a 6 and 3, better not be in relationship. Okay, that's not how that works. Wait till we get there to really understand that. Projector with reflector. Here's some colleagues. There's Sandra Bullock again. Thank God we have one to look at. And you can see projector attempting to get in, can't, because it's not the same thing. Not like the projector-generator relationship, or even projector with projector. So here in this relationship, we have got an 8 and 1 have some fun. And we can see that there's splits. Even though there's so much openness in both of them. So many connections, the electromagnetics, creating more definition in the chart. Again, it does not make them become generative. The relationship dynamic, though, has energy. Okay? One person starts, the other person finishes in that partnership. Okay, that was projector with reflector. Let's go look at our wonderful reflectors. Now, we've already gone over this once, but we want to give them their due. Here is reflector with reflector. We have Pontus and Kezia. Those of you who took PTL 1 this last year, you know who they are. They are our most famous reflectors in the human design community because they're famous because, well, Pontus created mybodygraph.com back in the day, before even Jovian. And then Jovian partnered with him. And so me working with Jovian, came across them. Their story is so beautiful. They both have been in design for a really long time and been professional LYD guides. Kezia is currently in the analyst training. So they are an exception, a complete and utter exception to the rule, as you'll see. Here we have 2 reflector auras, as you can see. Both of them sampling. Both of them with their Teflon aura sampling each other. Okay, resistant and sampling. Now look at that chart. If you haven't seen this before, a few of you have not. Look at that chart. Isn't it beautiful? They were born on the same day. Just a little tiny bit off. They met at a conference for reflectors. And I'm pretty sure that they were kind of encouraged to meet each other. You know, you can see they're both 5-1s, just slightly different. And in this relationship course, we have our little rhymes: 9 and 0, nowhere to go; 7 and 2, work to do; 8 and 1, have some fun; 6 and 3, better to be free; 5 and 4, not a relationship anymore. What do you call this? Karma. So the little rhymes, they're easy, simple, they help you remember things, but remember not to get stuck or locked into the trap of that being a forecast for the relationship. Because look, this relationship works. They even have a child now, and it's a beautiful thing to see. Okay, reflector with generator. Here's Sandra Bullock and Jesse James, her ex-husband. Let's take a look at the auric frequency. Oh, resistance and sampling. No warm auric bear hug for you, mister. Very different. But here, look at how much activity we have going on in the new channels that are created. Let's see how many there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 electromagnetics is a lot. We're talking sparks and fireworks. Did I get them all? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Wait, 6. Yes, there we go. And we have several really challenging electromagnetics. Remember, electromagnetics does not mean just love. It also means hate, too. intense dislike. So just because a lot of stuff comes into the relationship doesn't mean, oh, this is great. Yeah, there's work to do, but you guys will be okay. There's so much down below the surface. Remember, the line value, whether it's resonant or harmonic, that's for you to understand where the problems or the challenges are in the relationship. Let's look at one example. 45 and 21. Where's her 45? Is that hers? Yep. 45. There, Venus. Okay. So he's activating her relational wounding there. And what's his? Oh, look at that. Relational wound there. Okay. Because both of them, it's their values, Venus values and relating. Fourth line. So there's, resonant. Oh, that's going to be much easier than, say, if it was dissonant. So the Venus is what it's going to show you what you love. It's not a surprise then, therefore, to see that these two Venuses coming together, ooh, what a beautiful relationship that can be there. But wait, there's more. There's so much more. Activations where you get attracted to the other. Ooh, yummy, I love you. I can't live without you. But after some time, especially if you're sleeping together, it gets, get away from me. Because we need space. You're not designed to be hooked up all the time. You need your own space and time. So the electromagnetics, ooh, juicy, yummy, attractive, and also repulsion. Get away from me. Why are you so irritating? All right. That was reflector with generator. Now reflector with projector. Here we have Sandra Bullock and a different ex, Ryan Gosling. That's very cute. Here's the projector trying to penetrate, not able to. I remember one of my colleagues at BG5, he said he attempted, because he's an energy healer, attempted to give a reflector an energy healing session, and it felt like he was just slipping around and not able to get in or grasp anything. I thought that was interesting. And here we see the relationship. 6 and 3, better to be free. That's for you to get an assessment of the energy. And how many electromagnetics do we have? 1, 2, 3. And how many compromises? Now, reflectors are the master of compromise. They're always going to be compromised. It's not as big of a deal. We've got 1, 2. Okay, compromises. Lucky for him, for Ryan, he's not getting compromised because he will never in a relationship with a reflector. So he'll never have to experience that pain in the relationship. Reflector with manifestor. Here we have some friends, Sandra Bullock, Jennifer Aniston, and you can see the manifestor energy and that reflector energy. Remember that one? They both have their own protective shield. They both have their connection of commonality to being connected to the transits. So way more comfortable comparatively. Jennifer Aniston, here on the left, you can see pretty open. 1, 2, 3 channels. And then Sandra, all open. What do we have? Another 6 and 3. Kind of a commonality because you have less likelihood of definition. Not that it's not going to happen, just that it's less likely because, we have openness here. Openness, shared openness, as you can see here in this example, with the head and root on both of them, still remaining open, as you can see here. That is going to be more easeful than being conditioned by, say, let's say the emotional system came together in both of them and became defined. Here we see the sacral center is getting defined. That does not make either of them a generator. It makes that relationship productive. I've repeated that several times. I hope that that makes sense so that you can remember not to call it makes you a generator. No, it doesn't, because it does not equate. Remember, their auras have their own protective shield. The relationship has thematics. Ooh, succeeding where others fail. Failing where others succeed. discovering things as they go out into the world together. Okay, so we're reading the chart differently. This is not an individual. This is a relationship. Okay, that was a reflector with the manifestor. So now, as a recommendation, if you have not watched them, I'm going to link in the PDF the link to these videos on Jovian if you want them, or if you want to refer your clients to them. I can remember that those were really helpful at the beginning of my process, to hear it from the master, and so that there's another opportunity for them to hear it from someone else, what they are, who they are, what they're here for, what their frequency is, because that is really, really helpful. Ra says, I really want you to see the partnership analysis reading is an opportunity to bring people to the recognition of surrender. Because this is about surrendering to the other person is who they are, and I am who I am, and we can't change that. Just like I mentioned last week, it's not about trying to change the other person or make them different. Ra says, quote, at the simplest level, one of the things that human design shows anyone is a need to accept the other because there's nothing you can do about it. I think this is perhaps one of the deepest aspects of the knowledge, simply to be able to see the other is what they are. And if you cannot deal with them, then you're better off not being in relationship with them. So it doesn't mean that they're bad or wrong. It just means it's not correct for you to be in close relationship, partnership with them. Oops, I was reading and now I'm emphasizing like I tend to do without saying unquote. Now he says, but it's not like you're here to change them or fix them or alter them. That's not what this is about. This is simply about understanding, okay? So, all limitations can be transcended, he says. The ultimate transcendence is one through love. It's a transcendence to the harmony that's possible between beings. So, quote, he says, my whole thing is we have been conditioned to see the other in terms that have been romanticized for centuries. There's this illusion that our relationship with the other is something that has to be perfect. It has to be wonderful in all places, and everything has to work. It's just not true. The beauty of mechanics is that mechanics reveals the limitation of any relationship. And in revealing that limitation, it offers an opportunity. And that is where all limitations can be transcended. There is a harmony that's possible between beings when you don't try to change who the other person is, when you can accept and be in relationship, if it's correct for both of you, that you don't, try to force or push anything, but you go with the flow of your own authoritative process in honor of them as well.